We got about a little bit over a minute left before the show gets started. Thank you for getting in. Make sure you get in on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching. Make sure you get in. Let us know where you are from and what your questions are tonight. We'll go through a lot of Orange Bowl discussion, and I'm going to bring on my co-host here pretty soon. Make sure, again, you get in the chat. I know we've got some Oklahoma, Florida State going on right now. But hope and thank you for tuning in. Hey, before this video ends, I want to make sure that you remember to like the video if you like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of our exclusive Clemson content we put out every single week. I've been doing a lot of videos this week and last week, so I appreciate you getting in and being a part of that and helping out the stream. Thank you so much for getting in. Again, I am your host and producer, Morgan Thomas. We are live every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. When we're not on the radio, we're here on YouTube, and we talk all things Clemson football, basketball, baseball, softball, and whatever you want to discuss, we will get into it. Before I go any further and get into the chat, let me bring in my co-host. Mr. Houston Burnett is coming in soon, but right now it's just me and Big Al, Alan Adams. Welcome in, Big Al.
It's good to be back, man. A little bit of a break, but not too bad. We picked a heck of a day to get back on the air right before a big game. So looking forward to talking Tigers tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Getting in, talking about Clemson versus Tennessee. A lot has changed since what we thought it would be maybe in the regular season. If you were telling us this maybe in September, be a completely different game than what it is now. So a lot to discuss about the changes and what we think. And does that lean heavily more towards Clemson or Tennessee? We will get into it, and we will get into your questions as well as we go through the night. Let's get in the chat and make sure that we give a shout out to everyone that is already in. Tiggs, Edward, John Sarian, Tiger Paw 1978, Joey Thomas, Mark Rollins, and a couple others, but I can't see you if you're not in the chat. So make sure you put your name in there. And again, your topic that you want us to get into. A lot to discuss again, because this is Clemson versus Tennessee tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Which is crazy to think. I mean, it's crazy that it's already tomorrow that this game is going to be played, and the playoffs are this weekend. So pretty interested to see. Before we get into Clemson discussion, Al, I'll start you off with a little question about the playoffs. Of the four teams, is there a team that you are championing into the weekend?
As far as who I'm pulling for or who I think is going to win?
As far as who you are pulling for.
Oh, yeah. I think like America, I'm pulling for TCU. I'm pretty sure everybody's pulling for TCU. Why would nobody likes Michigan? Nobody likes Ohio State, and really nobody likes Georgia. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one. I mean, am I wrong there? Not only are they a team that hasn't been there, they're not one of the more hated teams in the country, and they're kind of the little man on the totem pole who's never really gotten their shot. They're getting their shot this year. I think that's the majority of people pulling for them, right?
Well, they are the Christians. That's for sure. I said this morning that I wouldn't mind seeing Michigan win, to be honest with you. And Mickey did not know why I said that because, I'm not a Jim Harbaugh fan.
Sure, me either.
And maybe it's a little bit of Eric Bakich rubbing off on me, him being such a good guy so far.
Yeah.
But TCU obviously is Annabeth's pick because she's a purple. She loves purple. So the Horned Frogs and purple all day, that's who she's going for. For me, I don't want Georgia to win because they are too close to Clemson. I don't want Ohio State to win because I would prefer if Ohio State closed their doors.
Yep.
I don't really know much about TCU other than they're Christians from Texas. And Michigan, they're blue, which is my favorite color. So I don't know. What I said this morning was I really want to see that running game and see what they can do with Donovan Edwards. I don't think Blake Corum is going to be able to play. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Donovan Edwards and that offensive line, I do want to see that see if a running team can beat and win the national championship. I'm curious to that, but I do feel like TCU has just as good a shot as anybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, obviously TCU is who I'm pulling for. Michigan, I'm fine with as well. Ohio State would be third, and Georgia a very, very, very distant fourth. So yeah, I mean that's an interesting thought for a running team to be able to win it all. Here's the thing, and I actually heard this on the Roar listening some this week. You know, if they're going to try to run the ball and kind of bully you into a win, they're going to have to out Georgia, and Georgia is better at it than they are typically, and I'm assuming they probably are this year as well. So it's going to be tough, especially without Blake Corum. So I think that's going to be a difficult thing to do, which is why I want a more balanced attack in TCU to end up playing them. As a matter of fact, I don't even want TCU to play them. I want Ohio State to beat them in the first game. So it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I'm pulling for that game for sure. The winner of the TCU Michigan game is who I'm rooting for.
All right. All right. Well, I hope that was a good little icebreaker for you, Big Al, getting into the game. I know tonight we have Oklahoma is playing right now. They're at halftime against Florida State. Obviously, Florida State's a rival of Clemson. I believe this was the last year division, so no longer a divisional rivalry. So Florida State is one of those teams that could be continuing to push against Clemson and try to beat them, take them off the top of the ACC. They're not really showing very good effort right now against Oklahoma. Right now, they're down 17-11. I haven't watched much of it. Seems a little bit back and forth. When I say effort, I mean just points on the board. They obviously are trying to win this game. It seems like they're into it. It was pretty close right before Oklahoma just scored right before halftime. But I'm interested to see. I don't think if you're Florida State, you should lose this game against Oklahoma that's obviously rebuilding.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that either. I think this is a game they ought to win. It's a game where I think they're the more talented team, but maybe Brent Venables knows how to stop a running quarterback. You know, who knows?
Well, I mean, maybe he learned something from me. Maybe he tried to get better. What about Texas? What about the late game, Texas and Washington? I really want to see what big Michael Penix Jr. can do.
Well, that's a game I honestly didn't even realize it was on tonight. I looked at the slate of games yesterday to see who was playing. Florida State, Oklahoma was the one that I really wanted to check out. And of course, this is going to get in the way of that a little bit, but we'll be able to see the end of it probably if we can get you quiet, around 8 or so. But yeah, I haven't really looked much at the Texas-Washington game, but I mean, Michael Penix was a huge playmaker for Indiana, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do as well. I don't really have you have somebody you're rooting for in that game. I would pull for Indiana, I believe, as the underdog. I got a guy that goes to, Mark, he coaches in basketball. He's a big Indiana guy, big Hoosiers fan, so it'd be nice to see them win one.
Yeah, I'm not really into that game much. I mean, I'm trying to think, obviously, if I'm going to go with running teams, Indiana would be, or not Indiana, I'm thinking Illinois. But I don't really know much about Indiana, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as the Texas-Washington game,
I was talking about the Texas-Washington game. I was talking about Michael Penix Jr. being from Indiana, and the fact that he's a former Indiana player would be a reason for Mark to pull for him.
All right, so I missed that last part then. So
sorry.
For Washington, Annabeth's going to want me to pick the Huskies. They're also purple, and they're also Huskies, which we have a Husky. So, I mean, I do want to see what they can do against Texas. I still think Texas is still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
They really, when you look back at them, they almost beat Alabama. That's going to be the recap of 2022 for them.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing for them. All right, so let's get into some Clemson discussion and started off with some Orange Bowl topics that I thought was pretty cool that I saw around some people discussing. And the first thing is, what's the biggest story for the Orange Bowl? What do you think the biggest story is? And I'll start. I feel like that the biggest story for me, obviously, is that the teams are completely different than what we thought we would be getting. If you look back at the regular season, there's no more Hendon Hooker. He's injured, even though I would have loved to play against him because I feel like he's afraid of Clemson for whatever reason. And he's also, well, it is in Miami, so he wouldn't be afraid of the cold there. But Hendon Hooker not there. I would have liked to have seen Hyatt. I would have liked to have seen Tillman. So we're not going to get those guys. You're still going to get Jabari Small. So that might be a good addition there to see what they can do, see how they can attack Clemson. A lot of Tennessee fans are saying that, be careful with Joe Milton. He might not be the most accurate guy in the world, but he's got a strong arm. Well, to be honest with you, we have seen with our own two eyes what an inaccurate guy with strong arm is, and it's not, it's not nothing scaring me. Okay, with that. All right, so we've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt on the Clemson side of things with a big arm, but don't know where it's going. So as far as Milton, though, the running part of it, him and Small and that tempo is obviously something to be concerned with going forward. But to me, the biggest story is, can Cade Klubnik keep it going? Can he redo what he did and do better, or maybe even equal what he did against North Carolina? Al, is that your biggest story for the Orange Bowl?
Yeah, personally, I think so. A lot of people are going to be talking about the opt-outs or the injuries or whatever it may be, and this is a drastically different looking game than it would have several weeks ago, or would have been several weeks ago. So Tennessee's had several guys opt out or whatever. Obviously, Hendon Hooker went down. And it's a battle of the backup QBs, so we'll see what happens here. It's going to be fun to watch. Cade Klubnik is going to be going against a defense similar to North Carolina's. Neither of them are very good. Tennessee, I would imagine, is a little bit better than North Carolina. North Carolina is an unbelievable disaster on defense. And so Tennessee's got a little bit more than they do, probably. I would imagine we're going to see some things, that we might not have been able to see, if it was a 1 week type of game, but this is when you've had weeks of preparation. I think they're going to throw a lot of different stuff at Cade and try to rattle him a little bit. And they're really going to try to contain him, I would imagine. I mean, I think the book is out that Clemson receivers don't get separation. I think they're going to have less people back there and put more people towards the line of scrimmage to maybe spy Cade or whatever it may be. So to try to keep him from making plays with his feet. But it's all about Klubnik, and can he continue to ride that wave from the ACC championship and take that into, the Tennessee game, and then hopefully into 2023.
His mom and dad, from what I understand, could not get a flight out because of all the craziness with flights and cancellations. So they drove 20 hours from Austin, Texas to Miami. I think any mom and dad probably would agree that that's what you do. They want to see their son compete and start in his first game in college, because the North Carolina game, he didn't start. So this is going to be really his first start, which I really don't know if that's any more big of a deal. I mean, he came in and did great in the ACC championship game. So, the fact that he's starting versus, 2 plays later or 2 drives later, I don't think is that big of a deal. But obviously it's a milestone for the player, for the family, and, for the team. So interesting to see how he handles, maybe there's some additional pressure. I really don't know, to me, but let's bring in Mr. Houston Burnett, who's also made a long trip, not all the way from Austin, Texas, but he joins us in now. Houston, welcome in, sir.
What's going on? It's been a long day, but I'm here. I'm alive, barely, and hopefully alive to see the Tigers win another one in Miami tomorrow night.
Well, we are talking about Miami, Clemson versus Tennessee. Right now, the ESPN matchup predictor actually has Tennessee at 57% chance to win. I don't know if that's been adjusted or not properly with the opt-outs and the injuries there in the transfers. But as far as Vegas goes, Tennessee is +6 and Clemson is -6. So Vegas is saying that Clemson is favored by just at a touchdown. Houston, tell me, this is the question of the night right now is, what is the biggest story for the Orange Bowl? Alan and I gave us our thoughts. We both said Cade Klubnik is obviously at the forefront. We've got people in the chat saying that, the offensive line and protecting Cade Klubnik is also a big deal. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's going to boil down to something alongside of Cade Klubnik, whether you want to say protecting Cade Klubnik or the wide receivers catching for Cade Klubnik or Cade Klubnik on the move or whatever. It boils down to him. He's the central plot of this. And you can look at this multiple ways. You could say, all right, is the offensive staff going to look at this like they did against UNC, where miraculously things got more creative once Cade came in the game, where they were able to accomplish more throwing the ball downfield, more so than Clemson's been able to see the last 2 years? Are they going to approach it like that and potentially give him some easy throws to get him in rhythm, sort of similar to what they did against UNC in the ACC championship game? Same with the wide receivers is, hey, look, they may not get separation, or at least for 12 games they didn't. And then against UNC, they did a pretty good job of doing what they do well. They got open, got the ball, got upfield, and then at the right times they got separation. So are we going to see that as well again? I think things change as the new energy as far as the offense goes with Cade running it. And so I think no matter how you slice it, as far as the Clemson side of the ball, it boils down to the biggest storyline is going to have to be something involved with Cade Klubnik.
Well, one thing is for sure, I don't think that we can go too far without saying, Tennessee on average is putting up 47.3 points per game, 538.1 yards per game. Obviously, the team is much different, but, a team that is geared towards high tempo and putting up a ton of yards and points, regardless of the personnel, they're going to want to fit them in that and be able to do that. So I'm curious to see if Clemson can contain that and, keep them one-dimensional. I think if they fit them into running the ball specifically because of their opt-outs, I think it bodes well for Clemson. But again, it's not going to be one that Tennessee is not looking to win as well. Let me ask you this. Who needs the win more? Al, we'll start with you.
Who needs the win more? That's a great question. I would say needs to win more, just because they've been pretty trash for quite some time, and now they've almost made it to the mountaintop this year. They got struck down a couple of times and by South Carolina, and then somehow that carried on to us. Just unbelievable. I'm still bitter about that, by the way, and probably will be for quite some time. So I think Tennessee needs it more in order to kind of stay where they are, and if not, even improve their stock going into next season, something like that. I think they have the most. I think they have the most to lose. Clemson, I think, is going to be Clemson regardless.
Houston, what do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, I tend to say Tennessee in this regards. There are actually scenarios here where you can look at this, where Clemson, if they lost the game tomorrow night, but Cade comes in there and the offense looks crisp and everybody just plays out of their minds, and the ball doesn't roll our way and we lose a close game, you at least can feel like, all right, well, hey, we got some tools going into next year to work with. Tennessee, on the other hand, if you lose this game, especially if you lose it in a way that you don't look good, especially without Hendon Hooker and without your two key wide receivers that are out there, that's a lot of questions for next year, especially for Joe Milton. You got this 5-star freshman from California coming in. Is that going to be a factor next year? Does that mean Joe Milton has a leash going into next year? Are they going to be in a similar scenario as Clemson was this year, where you've got a big guy that you're defending and you're going to roll with him, and then you get to a point where you're like, all right, we might have to put in a freshman? Like, there's a lot of more questions Tennessee has than Clemson does if Tennessee loses this game tomorrow night.
Well, I think both the teams can benefit from a win. Obviously, any win on the national stage can be a big deal, especially against an SEC team from the Clemson standpoint. And again, for the Tennessee standpoint, getting that postseason win when they haven't been there as much. I think it was looking at like, I was watching a video on BetUS where Tennessee and they're against the spread record, but it's like, they haven't played in bowl games, as frequently as Clemson has in recent years. So it's kind of hard to say, well, are they better or worse against the spread than Clemson, because Clemson has obviously played every single year in the postseason. So, but again, it's going to be important for both teams. I think both teams are going to be ready to play and put on an exciting game, an all Orange Bowl. quote from Josh Heupel says, "It's another opportunity for kids across the entire country to see the brand of football that you're playing, the culture that you have by the way you compete together. Throughout the course of this season, we've been able to show the proof of what this program is becoming and what's going on inside of our building and continuing to take steps forward to continue to compete for championships. When we first arrived, you were talking about it. A year ago, they saw a little bit of proof of it. They get a chance to see a whole lot more of who we are and what we're about." So, Al, I think that kind of backs up what you're saying. Is it seems like there's a lot riding on this from the head coach standpoint from Tennessee, basically saying that, hey, this is a place for us to prove that we've taken that next step forward.
Yeah, no doubt. I think those comments echo exactly what I was saying. We got to. I don't know if you saw this, but we do have a Tennessee fan in the comments over here, the only Tennessee fan that lives in this area, and we
yeah. Let me know. I'm going back and forth. If Phil is saying something, let me know.
Phil is saying something. He's asking if Tennessee can get it done in the red zone because that's something Hooker excelled at. And the tempo teams tend to struggle sometimes in the red zone, and Clemson's got a good red zone defense. And he's 100% right about UNC. They move the ball up and down the field, which is one thing I was irritated about in the ACC championship game, but they clamp down in the red zone. Are they going to be able to do that? I got to tell you, I don't think they're going to be able to get it done within the red zone. I think they're going to need to score off of big plays if they're going to score a lot of touchdowns, because an inaccurate passer and a tighter zone with smaller windows is not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Houston, what's your thoughts on the red zone success for Tennessee?
I mean, you see, there's a lot of similarities. People don't want to admit this just because the difference in ACC and SEC and whatnot, but there's a lot of similarities between North Carolina and Tennessee. A lot. Both are up and down tempo teams. Both, when they're clicking, they can score a ton of points. Both defenses are pretty suspect at best. And I think both of these, especially when you look at Tennessee's case, if they get into the red zone, if you don't have a guy that can hit these throws, Drake May is an excellent quarterback. He even struggled in the red zone against Clemson. We don't know yet how Joe Milton will do. You think back to the South Carolina game, Tennessee was able to move the ball and score on South Carolina until Hooker went out with injury. And from that point on, it was curtains from that. And I'm not going to say that Tennessee's going to, either way, never going to score a point or score a bunch of points or whatever. I just think it's going to be more of a struggle. If they struggle with South Carolina's defensive front, I surely think that they'll struggle with ours. That's why I put out a score prediction today on RevInTheRock.com. I said 38-30. That could go either way. Clemson could score more, Clemson could score less, whatever and ever. But I think that Tennessee is going to have its fair share of struggles.
Well, I appreciate Phil getting in, being our resident Tennessee fan and expert out there. Obviously, I've seen a couple of games of them, the big marquee games out there. A mixed bag, obviously, when you watch the South Carolina game versus watching the Alabama game there, because, with the injury to Hendon Hooker kind of hurt the whole team as a whole. And their playoff hopes just kind of died down. It's kind of interesting. The South Carolina fans like to say, this is the game of the two sons of South Carolina, because South Carolina is the daddy of Tennessee and Clemson. That's what they like to say, because they beat both Clemson and Tennessee this year, which congratulations to them. I mean, a 1-point win is very important for their program. So we will see. We'll see how well they can do in 2023 attacking Clemson with 17 tight ends versus Clemson and Cade Klubnik. We will see how it goes. By the way, somebody should tell Beamer, you don't need that many tight ends. You can't possibly need 17 tight ends on your roster.
He did the same thing last year with DBs. He took like 27 last year. So you want to talk about roster management problems with Clemson. Something's going to come to forbear with that situation in South Carolina sometime soon, but let them enjoy it.
We're going to the portal and we're getting a tight end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate everybody getting in and in the chat and discussing, the Tennessee Clemson game tomorrow night, 8 p.m. ESPN, the Capital One Orange Bowl. I'm looking through the chat, and John Sarian got in on YouTube and had a question or wanted a topic that he wanted us to talk about. And I think it was a good one, because something recently came out with KJ Henry and his discussion. I did a little video on it, and I wanted to get your thoughts as well. John says, talk about the obsession some fans have with Dabo not using the portal and creating the same revolving door, quote, successful, unquote, in quote, coaches use, eye roll emoji. Obviously a little bit of sarcasm there from John Sarian. KJ Henry recently came out and basically said, hey, I wouldn't even, this is from him, I'm paraphrasing him. KJ Henry said he wouldn't even be at Clemson if Dabo Swinney treated players the way that some fans want players to be treated, want Dabo to treat them, as far as like, hey, if you're not good enough, if you're not getting developed fast enough, I'm going to go ahead and go to the portal and jump you, and, good luck and good riddance kind of thing. KJ Henry, Al, remember when we first did this show, I believe KJ Henry was very young, and we discussed, I remember you and I discussing about how he was a guy who was really a 5-star guy, top 25 guy in the nation, but a developmental guy. I mean, when you look at his body, he was a basketball player at the time, right? And then you also had discussion from the staff that he just really wasn't vocal. He wasn't a leader, really. Well, that's completely changed now from what he was before to what he is now. Can you say on the list of developmental guys, there's a lot of fans, oh, well, there's no Dabo hasn't developed anybody. Dabo's coaches haven't developed anybody. I would say, let's start from the top here. From the horse's mouth, KJ Henry, he said he's glad that Dabo is loyal. He's glad that Dabo doesn't just go to the portal and jump people. He's glad and he's thankful that he came to Clemson, and he wouldn't even have came to Clemson. So all these people that saying, oh, go to the portal and it's not going to hurt recruiting. KJ Henry says the opposite. So would you put KJ Henry in that list of developmental guys that got better from when they started, even though he's a 5-star guy? And what are your thoughts on what he said?
Oh, without a doubt, he's one of those developmental guys. And I mean, there's been several of those success stories over the years, so don't let anybody fool you there. But what's crazy is, we want these guys, we want these 5-stars, we want these high 4-stars or whatever it may be. We want them to be an impact from day one as freshmen. We've gotten so greedy as fans, especially in Clemson, when we were used to 3 stars and some 2 stars and, the occasional 4, and now we're netting 4s all the time and, a few 5s here and there as well. It's a fascinating thing that we do. And it's like, look, if they're not contributing by year 2, people are calling them a bust. It's insane. Some people just take longer to get there. Some people show 5-star tools in high school, and they're able to get away with it because it's high school. They don't have to be as technical. They don't have to know the game as well. And then when they get to college, it takes a little while to get used to it and the step up of competition and the knowledge level and whatnot. And KJ Henry has done that. He's really, he's taken care of his body. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten to know the game better. And he's become a dominant player. I don't like that he's teasing Clemson fans, that he pretends he may or may not come back unless he's actually going to come back. I may not forgive him for that because Clemson is desperate for some defensive ends to come back next year, whether it be Brzee, whether it be Henry, whether it be XT. I think all 3 of them need to come back and shore up the defense for next year. But yeah, I think it's his comments are great. I don't know. Did he say he wouldn't have come to Clemson or he wouldn't be at Clemson? Because I think there's an important distinction there. I
guess so. I mean, I took it as he wouldn't come to Clemson when he said wouldn't be at Clemson, but he did say the word be at Clemson. So,
okay. I'm going to assume what he means by that is that after the first couple of years, he didn't, meet expectations, so to speak. If Dabo would have recruited somebody, then he may have jumped ship and gone somewhere else. That's what I'm going to assume. Surely he wouldn't just not come to Clemson because Dabo uses the portal because everybody else uses the portal. So if he's going to knock Dabo before he knock everybody else. So that's what I'm going to assume he meant by that. But yeah, his comments are spot on. Henry's been a great guy for the program. And I, for one, as every other Clemson fan, hope he comes back next year.
Now, Houston, I wanted to get your thoughts on another part of the discussion, which is how important recruiting is and evaluation of those players. Because if you are going to say, hey, we're only going to use the portal when it's absolutely necessary, and Dabo says, hey, you forget, a lot of people want to show and give examples of Josh Heupel. They want to give examples of, the guy at Michigan State. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they want to look at these examples like, USC and Lincoln Riley and Texas and these examples of teams and Miami and where they had to kind of come in and rebuild quickly. Dabo says, hey, I'm not in that situation. Don't put me in that bucket. I don't need to go out and get 14, 15 guys. Actually, to be honest with you, if you look at my roster on the Morgan T show on Twitter, they don't have enough room for 14 transfers. They would have to you would literally have to sit other guys down and say, hey, get out. Your scholarship's done. So that goes back to what KJ is saying is, these guys, Dabo puts a value and it goes back to the slow offer. Everybody knocks him for slow offers, but he's being purposeful. How important is recruiting when you have that mindset?
I mean, look, I think that the way that they do it is interesting enough. It's beneficial for the recruit they go after. I think people just think that, and look, I'm always going to have a very hostile opinion to most people that are knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing imbeciles on mouth boards or on message boards. That's just kind of how I view it for people who knock Dabo for how he handles this. But it's intentional. It's intentional with the way that he goes about his students. He's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. He knows that they've identified a candidate or a recruit, and it's almost like a marriage or a relationship. This is a relationship through recruiting that they do. And it's why that it's not just something to get them into Clemson. It's a holistic approach. So, yeah, you see some guys transfer out of Clemson. That's going to happen with every single school. But most of the time, you might have a handful of guys that just don't jive with Clemson. That's fine. You have a handful of guys that will eventually maybe see the writing on the wall that if they're going to increase their draft stock, they need to go somewhere else. Totally fine as well. But for the most part, it's it's one of these things that from the start of the recruitment all the way through graduation, it's something that Clemson is going to stick with their guys. It's their guys. And sometimes it may not be the most glitziest thing in the world, but I think that while it's not evident right now, I'd be willing to go out and bet that in the next 5 to 6 years, it's going to be more beneficial and helpful to Clemson instead of having situations, where you're relying completely on NIL, portal transfers. It's going to make your roster get out of whack real quick if you catch something the wrong way. And something that I'm interested to see, people are mad that we didn't go after these 2 wide receivers that ended up at Georgia. And look, I'll go ahead and say Georgia could end up winning a national championship with both those guys. They're both really good. So I don't want to discount that. However, you're getting 2 alphas from 2 separate teams. They were the leading receivers on both their teams. So what might happen when one of those guys doesn't get the touches that they want? Are they going to get mad? Are they going to transfer in the middle of the season? What's going to happen there? Are you going to have a situation? You're going to have a lot of teams that are doing the current things now that are going to end up like Texas A&M did this year, where you relied heavily on something that you think you're getting smarter than everybody else, and then it erodes your locker room. And that's a lot of different streets with NIL and the transfer portal. And I'm not saying that Dabo doesn't use that. He does. He uses NIL in a holistic sense. And then he'll use the transfer portal when it's absolutely necessary. So relax. He's got his way about going about things. I think it's going to be something that pays off for Clemson in the long run.
Well, also Barrett Carter came out and said, hey, I don't really care about who he brings in. I'm going to keep trying to do my best. You also want that mentality as well, because if you get guys on your roster that are constantly worried about getting jumped, they're not focused on being the starter themselves or being their best self and developing themselves. If they're constantly looking over their shoulder or out the window or on social media, worried about who Clemson is going to recruit, you have to go out there and compete. And I think that most of the players out there on Clemson's team are guys that want to compete, because that's who they go after, is not guys that are just going to want to be given opportunities, but want to compete for opportunities. Thank you, John, for that question or discussion topic. Let's continue with some more topics out there. One of the things I want to get to is specifically with the game, what youngster are you looking forward to seeing play versus Tennessee? What I mean by that is someone that might be a true freshman, a redshirt freshman, just someone who maybe hasn't seen a ton of playing time in the regular season, but maybe because this is the bowl game and because of some opt-outs, you may see them out there. And maybe because of what we saw in the NC State or the North Carolina game, you might see them as well. So that was the question of the night. Put it in the chat what you think your answer to that is. For me, I'm really, because of the uncertainty under Sheridan Jones, I really do feel like that you're going to see Jaden Lucas, Toriano Pride, those defensive backs, those youngsters that we've already seen a ton of, really, to be honest. But I think you're going to continue to see those guys. I'm looking forward to see what they can do. And really, I'll throw in Wade Woodaz. Every time I see him out on the field, man, he is just a monster. He's always in on the ball. He could kind of spell for that nickel position, So I'll throw him in there in the nickelback, maybe. But for me, with Sheridan Jones having that hip flexor issue, you don't know. He did not dress out on Wednesday. You don't know if he's going to play. He could be he'll be a game time decision. So that's a big concern to me. You no longer have Fred Davis. So then you have Nate Wiggins and Jaden Lucas and Toriano Pride. That's basically it. I mean, you could move Makuba down. That's what's on the depth chart. You'd have to move Makuba down. But I'm curious to see how these youngsters do in a up tempo type attack. So we'll start with Houston on this one. What do you think?
So I'm going to go on the other side of the ball for the youngsters. You mentioned the trio of secondary guys of Koval, Pride, and Lucas. I'm going to mention the trio of freshman and wide receivers. We've already seen it. What we like of Antonio Williams, to see if Adam Randall is getting healthier, can maybe make some more plays, because he's, you can tell he's still kind of working through his injury. Maybe this is finally a game that he takes off a little bit. And, of course, the unknown surprise of the ACC championship game, Cole Turner. You have somebody who could play boundary and slot in this guy. So you can really mix and match whatever you want with a wide receiving core. You don't have to rely on jump balls and back shoulder throws as much as you do now if you have a true slot guy, if you get creative with it. So I'm really looking at those three.
All right. You two are the worst kind of people in the world, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, the question is what youngster, singular, and you both named everybody on the roster except for Klubnik that could possibly be named.
We teed up Klubnik for you.
So what I can't say Klubnik, but what I'm going to do is kind of a review of everybody y'all just named, because the first names that came to my mind were Pride and Lucas as well. And look, I think Pride is a little bit ahead. I think he's gotten, more of the snaps over the season than Lucas has. But if y'all would just take a look, a good look, a long look, replay it over and over again of that pick he had in the ACC championship game, it was an absolute thing of beauty. He turns around, high points the ball, stops short, stops the route short, gets in front of the receiver, goes up and snags it. It was gorgeous. I mean, it's something I've been begging our DBs to do for years. And it's, if you just turn your head around a little bit sooner, there's 50 more picks to be had over the course of the year, and we just don't do it. Well, he did it. He got the pick. He got rewarded for it. I mean, those two are definitely higher on my list. And my next I was going to say was Woodaz. Guy's a ball player. He looks like he's got just a lot of natural football instincts, a lot of Ben Boulware in that kid. Moves a little better, obviously, but still, I'm going to be looking for a lot from him. And obviously, I mean, he plays linebacker and safety, so he's naturally going to move a little better. But Cole Turner on offense, I mean, the long bomb to Turner. I mean, that was a great play. And what's great about that route, if you go back and look at it, I've seen it several times, is he slowed down a little bit during that route, just enough to kind of give the DB a bump who was behind him, and then he reaccelerated to get that separation, which was absolutely beautiful. It's textbook wide receiver play. He didn't have to do anything special, just a little slowdown to get a little contact, separate, and the ball fell right in the basket. It was absolutely beautiful. And he almost got the touchdown out of it, obviously, very close. So there's a lot of players to look out for, a lot of youngsters. I'm really anxious to see Randall, really want to see him do what we've all thought he was going to do. And again, freshman, nobody's worried about that. If you are worried about Adam Randall, you shouldn't be, okay? He's got plenty of time to be the dominant wide receiver we think he can be. The alpha dog that we're looking for. And I'm sure, next year another year with the ACL and all that kind of stuff. I think he's going to be ready to rock and roll next year. And somebody even brought up Koval in the comments. I saw that. Another good choice. I like Koval's a very physical player, tough, hard-nosed guy. Love to see him bring the wood to somebody. So we got a lot of youngsters to look forward to, a lot of talent out on the field, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of them play. So
Al, you mentioned the Toriano Pride interception. Are you talking about
Jaden Lucas interception? The interception was Jaden Lucas. Toriano Pride and Jaden Lucas were the guys I was talking about in general, but the interception was Jaden Lucas.
Excuse me.
I may have said Toriano Pride, but
I'm going to do it. I'm gonna
do it. Are you about to play this? Are you going to get us in trouble? Are you going to get us kicked off the air?
I'm going to browse on ESPN.com. I'm going to look at ESPN.com. All right, everybody, just buckle up. Okay, buckle up. I'm going to browse. I'm browsing. All right. Jaden Lucas, interception. Clemson, North Carolina, ACC championship game, right?
That's it.
I'm just happened to be sharing this page, and this video just happens to play. Okay. Oh, well, after an ad.
Well, naturally.
We're not paying attention to the ad. Okay. Pay attention to what's on the left-hand side. The game leaders, Cade Klubnik, passed 20 for 24, 279 yards, 1 touchdown. On defense, I think they had an interception. You might be able to see it here.
Look how early he turns. It's a thing of beauty.
I mean,
look at it. He's ready, man.
I thought we weren't supposed to notice that.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm not touching it. It's just happening. All right. It's like Spygate when you only have like 10 seconds, right? You only have 10 seconds. You only have 10 seconds on the phone call, and then they trace your line. That's what it's like. It's like a 007. So hopefully we didn't get kicked off there. But I just happened to be on a website, and that video just happened to play.
Sure.
But that's what you were talking about. Just happened to be playing.
I mean, the computer knows. The computer hears, and the computer plays.
Oh, well, you know how YouTube is. They're always listening to us.
That's right.
But I was just browsing. But anyways. All right. So the next question is, there are a couple of early enrollees that are currently practicing with Clemson right now. And there are 5 of them. Okay. So you've got Vic Burley. I would love Vic Beasley to come back. Vic Burley, Stephon Green. You have Khalil Barnes, Shelton Lewis, and Ian Reed. All right. So that's your 5. Of those early enrollees that are getting in early practices with the team in Miami. Now, we can't say Peter Woods because he's not here yet. I'm talking about the 5 guys. Hard Time's already in YouTube saying, Peter Woods. I know everybody's really like on the edge of their seat for Peter Woods. But of the 5 guys that are there right now, only those 5, any one of those you really like, or you're really the most excited to see, or really excited that they are getting early reps in now? Houston.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when would you not be excited?
All right, Houston, you had to pick one. Now, Al, you remember Alan's rule. We already violated it the previous question.
I mean, any of the 5. I'll just say anonymous. You don't know. Like,
I'll tell you.
What kind of question is this? Like, it's hard. It's hard to say who you're most excited about because you've only got 5 of them there. From what I've seen, they've all done good. If I have to throw an anonymous name out, I'll throw Vic Burley out there. I'm excited that all
that's
5
not anonymous.
I'm excited for all 5 of them because I think this is valuable. I also know that we're 2 weeks away from everybody else getting on campus outside of a couple guys, I think. So it's not going to be long to the others. But I'm just glad all of those 5 are already on and starting to work out for the Orange Bowl.
So a lot of people in the chat are saying Vic Burley Al, do you think Vic Burley?
All right, point of order. Okay, you went to Houston first twice in a row now. Okay. Yes, of course I was going to pick Vic Burley. Of course I was, and and I tell you why. I think Vic Burley has really had a really good season. I mean, his highlight tapes look really good. I think what's the difference is if everybody leaves, I think we're in good shape on the defensive line. I don't care if everybody leaves. It doesn't. When I say on the defensive line, defensive tackle specifically, if everybody leaves, I'm not worried about it because we have Peyton Page, we have Trey Williams if he can stay healthy. We have DeMonte Capehart. We've got guys that are real players at defensive tackle. I think Vic Burley can come in and be kind of on the two deep, especially as an early enrollee as a freshman. I think he's got that kind of ability if everybody leaves. If not, he's going to be mired to third string duty, something like that. Especially if Aruke or Tyler Davis comes back. So I think he's the most important one right now to be at practice. I think that's a very big thing for him.
Now, I know these guys aren't going to play yet, but for me, there's something about Shelton Lewis. He doesn't get talked about a ton, but to be honest with you, what I really like about him is the story about him. Have you heard the story where Dabo comes to his home and his dad comes out of his room, and in his closet, he had a note, and on the note, it said top, 5 or 10 teams that he wanted to go to as a football player. And number one on the list was Clemson. And this was like when he was in middle school. So it's pretty cool to see his dream finally come to life now. And I want to see what he can do. Obviously, I feel like he's going to be even more dedicated to his performance on and off the field as a Clemson Tiger and as a student and athlete. So I look forward to seeing what he can do. Obviously, all the talk and chatter is around the defensive line and those wide receivers and Vizina. But I really like Lewis. I look forward to seeing what he can do. I really do like the secondary as well. I mean, I also mentioned Kylan Webb, a guy who's not early enrollee right now, but or as far as like practicing with the team right now. But I like what Clemson has brought in, in the secondary coming in as for the freshmen. We do have a tip. Thank you so much. Hard Time 3015, $1.99 tip. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and giving us a tip. We don't ask for them, but we appreciate them. So thank you so much for doing that. So he says his question is KJ just playing with our emotions? Looks like big cry eyes there, like sad eyes, puppy dog eyes. Is KJ just playing with our emotions? Some of the comments on Twitter are that should we run it back? I haven't made my decision yet. Going to let the game, going to play the game, then discuss it. Maybe we should come back. The Tyler Davis and Ruka Rororo said that they were both going to make the same decision, that they were in together as team, but that they were going to wait and see what KJ Henry told them to do because he is our leader, is what they said. So could possibly the Avengers come back? Is this something that they could run back from the Power Rangers now to the Avengers? There's not a ton of space left on the roster, as you guys know. So I don't think everybody can come back, but do you think that there's some substance to this? Big Al, I guess we'll start with you.
I mean, I certainly hope there's some substance to it. I mean, it's one of those things. KJ Henry seems like a real goofball. All right, that's kind of his personality in a good way. And I think this is exactly the type of thing that he would do just to be KJ Henry. But I certainly hope I'm wrong there. I mean, obviously, like I said, Clemson is absolutely desperate for defensive ends next year. I just don't know what we do if we don't go to the portal. If Brzee and Henry and XT all go, I'm not sure what Clemson does there. It's going to be really interesting to see because Clemson can have a heck of a defense. If those three guys to return on at the defensive end, man, they're going to be really good. They're going to have a lot to talk about, over this offseason about what we got looking forward. And hopefully the returning defense next year will look more like, the Power Rangers that came back with Wilkins and Bryant and Farrell and all them. So that's what I'm hoping for. But my gut tells me he's gone. But hey, it's been wrong before. CJ Spiller came back. That was a monumental deal. So you never know. It's Clemson, man. It's got to hold on some people. It's a very special place, and a lot of people do things differently around here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some people come back. I still hold that we're not done with portal deflections yet or defections yet. I think there's going to be a couple more of those guys head to the portal, especially if you find out that there are some guys coming back. And so I think you might have a handful of guys stay. I don't know who. I think KJ is probably out of the group that we've named probably the most likely to stay. I think that you could have a handful of guys end up sticking around next year, depending on how many scholarships open up after the Orange Bowl. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But, we just got to wait and see on that one. I think you might have depending on how many scholarships open up, between 3 and 4 guys maybe come back.
I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear the audio on this. We'll see. We'll see.
There's a great group coming back, and I could be a part of that. I've been elbowing some of these guys around here. I know Coach Sweeney's been teasing y'all, but we got some decisions to make. If everybody on the offense, were to swing this thing back, and a lot of the guys are supposed to go out on the defense, were to come out, or come back, it could be a very special year next year. So, yeah, TD was first team All ACC and All-American. He probably got his clothes packed and out the door. And TD come back. Then that leaves all the options open. J-Mac says he's gone, but he ain't really had my pitch yet. So nothing is really out from under the table until I say so. Just know that. When I say it's done, then we can start, writing it up. But everybody's free game. Davis just got engaged, so he's not really. But I'm coming at him too. This is a special group of guys. So it'd be very, very special run at it. We all turn this thing back one more time.
Well, I don't know if you heard that, Big Al, but he's basically making his case for some of the guys to run it back. And he said, hey, it's my decision. I am the leader here. Even Davis Allen, he said Davis Allen is getting engaged, but you know what? Maybe he can convince him to stay too. Again, I know it's all a joke, fun and games here. To be honest with you, I mean, they're losing 29. They're replacing 26. So there's 3 open spots. They had 1 transfer. So for me, there's 2 open spots. So I don't really see a ton of openings there, to be honest with you. If you have to be at 85. Now, if there's some sort of rule now where you don't have to be at 85, then let's do it. But I don't know.
Yeah, the numbers will work out. They always work out. Okay.
They always work out. Well, I don't know. Houston disappeared from us. Let's see if we can bring you back on.
Yeah, y'all
because you can't
Are you
go
talking
to him
to
first.
yourself, Houston?
No, y'all froze as soon as you put on the video. No, I could hear that. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Like Al said, the numbers tend to work out. I'll always contend that we'll probably have a couple more people not on the roster next year that are currently on it right now. So who knows? Let's see how this plays out.
All right, here's a controversial question for you. Are you glad that Cade was given more time in what Dabo Sweeney says, the crock pot? Now, he's saying that guys like Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson had to be ready faster and earlier on in the season, whereas Cade Klubnik had time in the crock pot to develop. By the way, he also mentioned that he is officially at 200 pounds, which is a great achievement for him. He needed to add more muscle mass, and he did so. So Cade is there. I feel like he's at the weight he needs to be. Maybe he could add a little bit more. I don't know. As long as he doesn't lose his speed and shiftiness, I'm good with it. But Cade had more time in the crock pot, but it kind of goes, that's what Dabo Sweeney says, but it kind of goes against what everybody else wanted, which was more Cade and Cade earlier. And, I said Cade by Halloween, and some people said Cade earlier, and these things like the South Carolina game wouldn't have happened. Alan, we'll start with you since we did Houston double time here. Are you glad Cade was given more time in the proverbial crock pot?
Absolutely not. Of course not. I mean, especially one less game and we'd be in the playoff. One less game. He plays against South Carolina. We'd be in the playoff right now. You're never going to convince me he wasn't ready, but all of a sudden he's ready a week later in the ACC championship. That's nonsense. And let me be very clear about this. North Carolina's defense is garbage. Okay, I don't think Cade is not going to make mistakes. I don't think he's not going to have some growing pains. But I can tell you this: he would have made all the difference in that game for sure. And I mean, it still baffles me that we found a way to lose that game. But no, I don't like that he had that much time in the crock pot. Like I said, I don't mind that he wasn't a starter halfway through the season. They see a lot more practice than I do, all that kind of stuff. I get it. I understand all that. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing that he didn't start off the season or anything like that, but definitely, when DJ started struggling so badly at the end of the year, we needed to see more Cade. And again, like I said, I think we're in the playoff if he played earlier.
Houston, do you think Clemson's in the playoffs if Cade started earlier? Do you think that it's okay that he got in the crock pot longer?
No, it's 1,000%. We should have played in the South Carolina game. Like, that's one thing that, maybe Dabo down the road, we win national championships with Cade. Who knows? Dabo goes down the road and everybody's glad at his career. But this is one thing that he's not going to be able to live down in his career. Right, you're not going to be able to live it down that you had a 1 point loss to an inferior South Carolina team when you have a quarterback on your roster that was better than the quarterback you kept trotting out on the field. It's unacceptable. That is a coaching decision that was terrible. All right, and I don't want to sound too harsh, but I mean, look, it is what it is, man. And you just needed one more play, and that game was over. One play. Cade would have made that play. Cade would have made the play. And we would be in the playoff right now.
Let me see what the chat has to say about it. By the way, this is kind of a breaking news here. Bill Lanham gets in, says Clemson women basketball team just defeated number 7 Virginia Tech. Wow. Good
job,
ladies.
Going to the turning, baby.
Nice. Matt B says the crock pot was ready against USC. Ruby Ridge says after Notre Dame lost, Clemson shouldn't be in the playoffs.
I saw Ruby's comment. Florida State's not going to win the ACC next year. I just want to let you know that. That's a terrible thing.
Oh, so Ruby's a Florida State fan.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, look, you're struggling with a 6-6 Oklahoma team. So let's
18-17 right now with 3 minutes to go in the third. So, we shall see. I'm trying to look at some of the premium grades for Tennessee. And the last question of the night will be the game preview. I'm looking at some of the premium grades from PFF.com. You've got their top 5 here. Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton is highly graded. But I guess he only really had that one game against Vanderbilt. So Jabari Small, as we mentioned earlier, Jalen Wright, who's their other running back, Jack Janik, who doesn't really have a lot of snaps, so that doesn't count. There should be some sort of snap count for these grades. But Jalen Hyatt, Squirrel White. My question there is, if you're a quarterback that struggles with accuracy, how are you going to throw to a squirrel? You never know where they're going. So, I mean, I don't know how accurate how good that's going to be there, but Squirrel White obviously has got some pretty good grades there, 75.7. They're Jack Lampy, their guard. To me, I do feel like that it's going to be, how good can they run against? I guess their top wide receiver that's still out there is really Brew McCoy, right? And he wasn't originally a wide receiver when he came to college football. On defense, you got Brandon Turnage, cornerback, Wesley Walker, safety, Tyree West, edge, Romello Edwards, Tyler Barron. Not seeing where was that guy? Banks, I think, is out. Jeremy Banks has opted out, but he's kind of lower on the list, actually, to be honest with you. I guess last discussion that I wanted to bring up was the fact that Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator for Tennessee, recently came out and said, hey, you know, Cade Klubnik's got some talent. He's an athlete, but we've played top talent in our league. I went back and looked, guys. When I look at, let me pull up the actual stats here. Clemson Sports Talk, I put an article up. I went back and looked, and he said that they'll have their hands full with Cade Klubnik, that he has a lot of talent, but also that he's just the next guy up, and they've played a lot of talented quarterbacks in the league. Anthony Richardson threw for 453 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels threw for 300 yards and 1 touchdown. Bryce Young threw for 455 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Will Levis only threw for 98 yards and 3 interceptions, so that was a bad one there. But Stetson Bennett threw for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brady Cook threw for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns. Spencer Rattler had the huge game, 438 yards and 6 touchdowns. And the games against the top quarterbacks in their league, you know, the guys that they've played already, outperformed the quarterback of Hendon Hooker. Now, they didn't always win the game. The opposing team didn't always beat Tennessee. Tennessee had a very good offensive attack, both running and passing the ball. But to me, it kind of points to some opportunity there for Cade Klubnik because of the success that past quarterbacks have had against Tennessee's defense. And this is coming from words from the defensive coordinator for Tennessee. Again, I think that the body of work shows that there's a lot of opportunity for Cade. Al, we'll start with you again.
Whoa, Houston, 3 in a row, brother. Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity for Cade. You know, and that's what I was talking about earlier in the show. I think their defense is a little bit better, but similar to North Carolina's. The only thing I'm concerned about is them bringing a lot of stuff that we haven't seen on film. That seems to bite us at times. And I think with a month, you know, almost a month, whatever, to prepare, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks or whatever to prepare, I think they're going to be able to throw some crazy stuff at us. I really think they're going to try to keep the game in front of them, you know, whether it be the running game and Cade, and they're really going to try to get Cade out there and make him make plays with his arm. I think that's what they're going to try to do. And again, that's where Tennessee is most vulnerable. So there's going to be some opportunities for Antonio Williams and Randall and Gata and all those guys. So and Cole Turner. So, you know, hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of it. But yeah, there's definitely some opportunity there.
Hard Time says, Morgan, stop with the Houston hate. Houston, I'm sorry. I am going to promote you to the middle of the screen for your discussion.
I'm digging what Hard Time's selling tonight, man. He's been live on point tonight. So Hard Time, I don't know who you are. I'm down with you, man. Yeah. So I think Al kind of hit a lot of what I was saying. At the same time, look, there's not a ton of film that Tennessee has on Cade. I mean, you got, you know, basically one game and then a half against Syracuse where he didn't throw the ball at all. They just ran the ball the entire second half. So you can try, but at the same time, Clemson's got a bunch of wrinkles they can potentially throw in there. And look, we've seen historic performances in the past before off of first starts or full completed game starts by spectacular freshman quarterbacks. First start for Deshaun, North Carolina game 2014. That was a pretty bully beatdown. Trevor's first start with Syracuse, he got injured, but the first game that he started and finished was Wake Forest in 2018 when Clemson won 63-3. Not saying that any of those outcomes are going to happen, but I think you've got a live arm in Cade Klubnik that could absolutely go off, and I think absolutely that that Cade could have a big night.
Well, I appreciate everybody getting in. Hard Time says his name's Adam Allen, and he can fill in the third spot whenever he needs. So, you know, that works out great instead of Allen Adams. But maybe you have to be Little Al instead of Big Al. We can't have two Big Al's. That wouldn't work. All right, Houston, since I hate you so much, what we'll do is we'll give you – it's time for the final thoughts of the night. By the way, Tiggs gives in his score prediction. I think this is very reasonable.
Sure.
Clemson 100, Vols 0. I think it's the best prediction of the night. All right, Houston, this is the final thoughts of the night going in. This is the end of Thursday show, and we're getting ready to enjoy the late night game, Texas versus Washington, and then get ready all day tomorrow for the late night game next week. So, Houston, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm going like full screen on this one. Well, look, it's the last game of the year. Everybody needs to, get ready for tomorrow. I think that Clemson's going to win this game 38-30. I think Cade's going to have a big game. I also think that this is going to catapult Clemson into a very good 2023. I think in the end, this is going to be put Clemson right where they want to be. People are already going to sleep on them next year. Florida State is going to be the darling child. You got Notre Dame on the schedule. They're going to be pumped up by everybody. Everybody's going to be pumping everyone else up but Clemson. And Clemson's going to come in being slept on. I think that's where they want to be going into next year. So Clemson wins tomorrow night 38-30. I think they come in ready and rejuvenated in 2023.
All right. Thank you so much, Houston, for getting in with your final thoughts. And if you want to follow Houston at Radio Guy Houston over on Twitter, Big Al, final thoughts. You have the floor.
Final thoughts. Phil, I know you're a decent human being, but die like a dog. Clemson 30, Tennessee 27. Go Tigers.
We appreciate Big Al for getting in and being a part of the show tonight. Thank you so much, Big Al. If you want to follow Big Al, well, you can't follow Big Al because he doesn't really go on Twitter or anything like that. But you can always catch him every Thursday night as long as he'll have me on Thursday on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, wherever you get your live stream. Well, you're always welcome in. Again, every Thursday night, 7 p.m. If we're not on the radio, we are here with you on YouTube, online. All things Clemson, basketball, baseball, football, softball, recruiting, and obviously the Orange Bowl and everything in between. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and supporting the channel. The biggest thing that you can do to help the channel is to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on all of our exclusive Clemson content. We put out every single, day, to be honest with you. And then if you don't mind, share it with a friend, another Clemson fan that's out there, or college football fan that might be tolerant of a Clemson Tiger fan show. We appreciate it again. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend that's coming up. And by the way, next time you see me, I will be 1 year older. Well, not really 1 year. I mean, I'm already 1 year older. It's already happened. I can't go backwards, but officially on paper, I will have had a birthday. I will be older the next time you see me. So again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. If you don't know, hey, December 18th was our show anniversary. So we are now on our 4th year of doing the show, and we appreciate you being a part of it as always. Again, I'm not going to give you a specific prediction. I just think that the orange team will win, specifically the correct orange team, which will be the one behind there, and that is the Clemson Tigers. Again, I hope everybody has a good night. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.